Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome back. So, today I wanted to talk about the full series from Netflix, Siege: War for Cybertron. Now, I did actually a very short reaction video to it early this morning, and that's basically all it was. It was my initial reaction to seeing the first two episodes. I really didn't go into any kind of depth about much of anything other than some of the things that I thought were really cool that they did in this series so far. So, I want to take a look at what are some of the things that are in this show that actually make it really enjoyable and really good to watch, especially if you were an old time fan. Well, number one is going to be all the different characters that you've seen in it. Of course, you've got Optimus Prime, as you've seen in the trailer, and Ultra Magnus, but you also got characters that were in the original Sunbow cartoon as well, such as Alita 1, Chromia, Moonracer, and of course, staples of the franchise: Sideswipe, Hound, Red Alert, Ironhide, Cog, who was actually part of Fortress Maximus, Cliffjumper. Well, you only see him in one scene, but he is there. Wheeljack, Mirage, Ratchet, and RC from the movie. Now, one other character you see, and he's not really listed as Autobot, and I'm not going to say why right now, is Bumblebee. Keck 44, how you doing, buddy? I'm glad you could make it. So one of the things that was actually really cool about this is they paid a lot of homage to the original Sunbow cartoons in the way that they opened up this series. Your first shots are of a couple of Decepticon jets flying. Now, the two Decepticon jets bear a very striking resemblance to the Sunbow cartoon of the Cybertronian jets. Mikhail Jolin, how you doing? And not only that, but the first two Autobots you see, much the same way that they did in the Sunbow cartoon, is Wheeljack and then Bumblebee. Now, I thought this was a really awesome throwback to pay homage to the original show by making sure that you've seen those two first above any other Autobots. I thought that was really cool. Hey, MacGyver, how you doing, buddy? And of course, the color schemes to all the Autobots. These were pretty much spot on because when they redid this, this series and they did this line, the Siege War for Cybertron in the toys, they pretty much they mirrored the original G1s, and this is exactly what they did in this show. Granted, they look a little bit more gritty and they look dirty and they look beat up, which is really showing that they're in a war, and it's not so clean cut like the original comics or the cartoons actually seem to be. CJH and Slasher McSplitter, what's going on, pal? Now, there was a lot of different things about this series that I thought was pretty cool, and I touched on it in that short video I did. Some of the things were the little clicks and whirs that you hear all these robots making, the Autobots and the Decepticons. Every time they take a step, you can hear the gears grinding and the little whirs of the motors. And every time they put a foot down or they clap their hands together, you hear that clunk of metal, like you should hear. If these are sentient robotic beings, you should be hearing those kind of sounds. And they nail this. They nail this better than they ever did in any of the cartoons. And the animation, what we've seen in those trailers, while it looked really good, it's actually done a lot better in the show. Now, I'm thinking that the original trailers were probably not cleaned up versions of the animation style that they put into it. And once they actually got to the show itself and you get it, on Netflix, it is so much better than it looks in those initial trailers. Now, I went through the entire series because I couldn't stop. And the entire series, believe it or not, it only consists of 6 episodes. But in those 6 episodes, they tell a story that is not the beginning of the war, but it's somewhere near the middle to end of the war on Cybertron. And everybody is beat up. The planet is half destroyed. And it is really gritty and dirty. And there's some things that they actually do in this that are not only gritty in the way that it's represented in the animation and the art style and everything like that, but there's actually a few scenes where they use like I don't want to say they're really curse words, but they use some things like he calls Wheeljack calls Bumblebee a pain in the ass. And there's a few scenes like that where it's a little bit more adult oriented, which I really like that as well, because you're getting a grittier side of the Transformers, which we always should have seen. Now, as far as some of the Decepticons, of course, you had Megatron, Starscream, Soundwave, Shockwave, Laserbeak, Refractor, Astrotrain, Barricade, Skytread, Spinister, Thundercracker, Skywarp, Ravage, a bunch of unnamed seeker jets, but three of them were in the colors of the Rainmakers, which were Acid Storm, Ion Storm, and Nova Storm. And you also get Impactor and Jetfire. I also list them separately on the Decepticon side because, well, there's a little bit more to the story that I'm not going to get to because I don't want to spoil everything. Now, some of the other characters that we see in the show is we see the Guardians. Now, if you remember the original Sunbow cartoon, you remember the big blue Guardian robots. We see a version of them. We don't see them very clearly because they're kind of hidden in a way, but we do see them. And one other Guardian that we do see is Omega Supreme. And there's one other character that we've seen that was originally a release in Japan, and that would be Sound Blaster. And Sound Blaster comes with Buzzsaw in the scenes when we do eventually see him. A lot of the things in the callbacks to these cartoons they did, it was truly amazing. And one of the things that they did is the callbacks to the Decepticons were in control of the planet and the Autobots were fighting to survive. They actually kept that alive when they did this series. I think that's so important that they go back to the well of what the original canon was to make this very palpable. Now, a lot of people were worried that it was going to be woke. Captain Trek, Parrothead, Macity 90, thank you for coming. A lot of people were worried it was going to be woke because one of the first things you see some of the female Autobots. Man, you have nothing to worry about. These were done the exact, oh, well, maybe not exact, but they were done very similar to how they were done in the Sunbow cartoons in the 1986 movie. They were there. They had their purpose. They may have had their powers, but they weren't overbearing. And it wasn't all like female first. It was none of that. This was done extraordinarily well. If you wanted to see something that was partially inspired by the G1, but also inspired by the IDW comics and the War and Fall for Cybertron games, this series is it. This series, to me, once I got through the entire thing, I was actually amazed at how well it was actually done. I was actually riveted, and I watched it straight through from episode 3 this morning when I got up right down to 6. I had no problem finishing out this series at all. Now, some of the other people that they actually mentioned, once again, paying the callbacks to the original Sunbow, is they talk about Alpha Trion and what happens to him because of Megatron. And there's also mentions of the Allspark in this one, paying homage to the greater lore that was established in Marvel Comics and some of the other shows and movies. And there was something new in the way of something called the Alpha Trion Protocol. Now, I am not going to get in depth of that because it's a bit of a spoiler. I am just going to mention it that, yes, there is some new stuff added, and it's not just all a rehash of the older stuff. Now, one thing that I didn't like is actually a pretty small thing, and it's Ironhide's voice in this one. Because anybody remembers Ironhide, he had that rough, gruff voice. This Ironhide in this show does not have that, and he almost sounds like a young kid in a way. That was one of the few things that I didn't like. Most of the other voices, they did pretty good. Granted, they don't sound exactly the same as the old Sunbow cartoons. Megatron's got a bit of a different voice, but he's still got that raspy voice. The guy who did Prime does him very well. Slightly different, not the same as Peter Cullen, but it's done enough in the same vein that it's really not that bad. And it's nothing really to nitpick over. Starscream, once again, the voice is slightly different, but it's done in that same whiny style that Starscream was always known for. And a lot of the other characters were as well. Now, a few of them that did kind of stand out as being incredibly different, of course, was Shockwave. Shockwave's voice does not really sound at all like he did in the original cartoon, but once again, it's really not that bad. Soundwave is slightly different too, but they did keep that robotic element that made him so unique in the original cartoon. So I really can't complain about that one that much either. Now, the grittiness of this show, it didn't just end with the animation and the language, but there was also like some pretty gritty scenes where they had Autobots impaled on stakes. Yeah, I mean, it very similar to Vlad Tepes, or as some people would know him, Vlad the Impaler, or better known as Dracula. It was a very, very dark scene. It was a few scenes actually where they showed it, and it was extremely dark. And it was like, I can't believe they went that route. And they borrowed heavily from the IDW comics, which I talked about in my earlier vid. This is heavily, heavily, heavily inspired by the IDW comics, with enough of the Sunbow and the Marvel comics thrown in to give everybody a little bit of something when they're actually watching the series. So there's also a mention of a space bridge, which, if you remember the old Sunbow cartoon, Megatron and them had a space bridge that they were ferrying stuff back to Cybertron for Shockwave. They have a space bridge in this one, but the way the space bridge is done is a conglomeration of not only the old Sunbow cartoon, but also the IDW version of what a space bridge would look like as well. Plus, I think hints to some of the newer series like the Prime series. I think this was well done. I mean, it was really good because once again, you're giving everybody a little bit of something to be able to jump on board, and you're not disrespecting the old G1 fans while you're doing it. Ancient One, how you doing, buddy? There is plenty of stuff in this show that is just amazingly done, all the way down from the minute details that they put into the artwork on there, where you see these little scratches and paint peels and dents and all these ravages that these beings have gone through during their war. It's truly is amazing. I mean, it's done very well. Like, a lot of people talk about the 1986 Transformers, the movie, and they talk about how much it really looked like they've actually been in a fight and they've been in a war. When you see Prime all busted up and you see Megatron with his face all cracked up, you get that in this series. Netflix hit it out of the park. For me, this is top. This is a 10 out of 10 for me. It was done well enough, and the few problems that are in this, like Ironhide's voice and a few of the other things, they can actually be overlooked because they're not so much that they're taking away from the rest of the story and the action and everything else that went into this show. Some of the other callbacks were previous iterations to the stories, which included stuff that was in the IDW comics, which was the Sea of Rust. Now, I think the Sea of Rust was also mentioned in Marvel comics as well, but I just can't recall it offhand. But it was mentioned in there, and there was also an additional callback to not only the Sunbow, but the Marvel comics as well, when they had a big fight scene that involved Cybertronian zombies. Now, I was actually really surprised that they put that in there too. And there was a few deaths in this show too. And I'm not going to touch on who died. Hey, Luffy is God, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for coming by. There were a few deaths that I really didn't see coming, and a few of them were actually what I would consider main characters throughout the Transformers franchise, and I was actually kind of surprised that they died. It wasn't expected, but as part of the story, it was riveting to me. It really did show the consequences of war and that there was a price to be paid from these beings. I really can't even complain about seeing some of these favorite characters like perish. It was just so well done. So another one they did was a callback again to IDW. Now, in IDW, they did a whole bunch of series of one-shots where they were pretty much individual characters, and they had, Perceptor, Optimus Prime. I think they had one for Shockwave, and they also had an individual story for Mirage. Now, in this one for Mirage, he actually was, I believe he was dreaming, and he was having a weird dream while he was in a CR chamber, which is a cybernetic regeneration chamber. While he's in it, he's actually having a dream that he was a Decepticon. In this show, he uses his cloaking abilities to mask his appearance, and he appears to be a Decepticon in front of the other ones. And of course, his holograms start, like, his little things start fading out, and they start seeing that he's really an Autobot. And, it kind of goes from there. But I thought that some of these little callbacks that they gave to the different franchises, not only like from the video games, from High Moon, from the War and the Fall of Cybertron, from the Marvel comics to the Sunbow cartoon to the movie, but also to all these IDW comics as well. I mean, I love that. I think that's amazing. And I don't understand why more franchises can't do what Netflix did with this series. Michael Brent, how you doing, buddy? This was by far one of the best renditions of the Transformers in an animated form that I have seen in a long time. Now, they had I want to say a decent one when they were doing Combiner Wars, but it doesn't really compare to this one. This one was done perfectly. This was spot on to me. Anyway, guys, do you have any questions about the show? Was there anything you want to hear in particular? Is there something you want to hear about certain characters? Because I tell you, like, everything I've seen right now, if you guys haven't even thought about watching this one, I would highly recommend it. Highly recommend this one. If you don't have Netflix, I actually seen that Netflix is offering a free subscription, like a trial subscription. So you could sign up and catch a few episodes of this, and you could probably determine whether or not you want to keep Netflix to watch the whole series, or maybe if there's something else on there, or maybe you just want to watch this whole series and then be done with it. But if we're going to, this show is definitely worth getting that free trial if you don't already have it and watching it. This is an amazing show. This is very G1 inspired, very IDW inspired. It's a good conglomeration of every Transformers franchise out there, really minus the Bayformers, because there's really no touch of Bayformers in this for me. Not that I've seen. This is all the Transformers that most people know and love. And this is what we so desperately needed out of these franchises. We needed to see the callbacks to those original shows. Yeah, Michael Brent, now if only we can get a proper Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles TV series with this type of storytelling, or Battletoad or Captain Planet. Well, Michael Brent, now it was quite a few years ago. They did have a Turtles one. It was an animated movie, and it really wasn't that bad. I want to say it was Turtles Out of Time or Turtles in Time or something to that nature. And while it may not have been good as some of the earlier comic books and maybe even some of the earlier cartoons, it was actually done enough in the same vein that it really wasn't that bad. I don't know if you've ever seen that one, and tell you the truth, I don't even know where to watch it anymore, because it used to all be on Netflix, but Netflix has since removed all their Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff. Miss Martin Muses, hello, my dear. Welcome. Yeah, no, as far as I can tell, McEnany, no ounce of Bayformans. Not that I can tell. For everything, most than 90% of this show is based either in between Marvel Sunbow or Marvel Sunbow and IDW. There's a lot of IDW references in this one. A lot. And the early IDW comics of the Transformers, they were some amazing stories. And once again, they borrowed heavily from the old G1 stories from Marvel. And not even to mention, or forget to mention, some of the High Moon Studios, the War and Fall for Cybertron games, which also paid a lot of homage to the original stuff. Michael Brent, did you hear that Avatar: The Last Airbender is also getting the live action Netflix treatment? I did not hear that one, but I'm sure if they do anything like they did with this Transformers series, it's going to be amazing. Second Street Marvel, yo, Trinity, what's going on, brah? It's good to see you here. Man, Trinity, love that guy. Michael Brent, I'm a huge Transformers fan, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan, Captain Planet fan, Freakazoid, and Bucky O'Hare. And yet we've never actually had good storytelling as of late. Well, Michael Brent, This show right here, to me, this changes a lot, especially with some of the stuff that you've actually seen Netflix put out. Some of the stuff is a bit ridiculous. Like I tried watching that new series Cursed, and there was just a lot of nonsense in that where it's a lot of historical time bending and everything where it doesn't even make sense because it never could have happened that way. And not to mention they took the original, well, what was the original lore of the King Arthur, and they kind of twisted it all around. But it was like whatever. I mean, the show itself was, action wise, I would say that Curse show was okay. But if you're talking plot wise and sticking to story, it was pretty poor. This one actually sticks to the old canon. It shows a good story, and it actually shows something that you never really got from the Transformers series other than the IDW version, and you actually seen in the 1986 movie, which is actually something that is gritty and it's a real war and there's real consequences. Because in all those original Sunbow and even a lot of the early Marvel ones, there was no real consequences because those guys in the early Marvel ones, they could get almost completely annihilated. All their pieces could be picked up and they could be put back together because they were even though they were supposed to be sentient robots, they apparently had no way of dying in the early Marvel versions. And it wasn't until later on at Marvel that they actually started coming up with a spark. And if if their spark gets destroyed, that they can die. I mean, that was something that was done later on, and it was expanded heavily on in the IDW version of the Transformers universe. Ancient One. She actually happens to be a rose in a flower pot that somehow levitates. Check out Miss Martin Muses as seen in the link. Thanks for dropping her link, buddy. Luffy is God. That Turtles movie was cool. I featured the new animated Turtles and the 80s series Turtles, among others. Krang wants to erase all of reality to finally get rid of the Turtles. I recommend it. Now, Luffy, are you talking about that cartoon one, or is this a different one? Because I want to say the one cartoon one that I was talking about was like, I don't know, 2008 or something like that. Oh, God, Michael Brown. I never watched that. I never watched that. And you know what? I was not a fan of the original She-Ra either. So I liked He-Man. I didn't care for She-Ra. It just wasn't my cup of tea. Even though some of the villains in there, like Hordak and all them, were pretty cool. I just wasn't really that into it. It's called Turtle Forever, huh? Yeah, I don't think I've really seen that one. See, the problem is I only have a couple of streaming services, so I got to stick with the streaming services I have because I really can't afford to get anything else. I mean, we don't pay hardly anything for the Netflix, or my wife has Hulu, which is extremely cheap because we got it through a deal through Sprint when we signed up for phones years ago. So, yeah, because both of those are relatively cheap, we don't pay much. So, trying to get another service is just really not something in my wheel well right now. 2003 TMNT. I want to say it was 2008, McEnany. If I tell you the story, you might know which one I'm talking about. It had to do with this guy who came back from from the Aztec Empire or something like that, and all his generals got turned to stone. And in order to release them from the curse, he had to gather up like 13 monsters and send them back through a time portal, which would also release his curse of being immortal. I want to say it was 2008. But yeah, I mean, as far as this show goes, with all the characters you get to see it and some of the situations that they have these characters in, it was truly amazing. Yeah, the 2007 CG movie, I saw that multiple times. Yep, that's the one. I thought it was 2008. It's 2007, bud. Okay, thank you. Yeah, yeah, I like that one. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was very similar to the early TMNT cartoons from the 80s. So I didn't think it was bad. Thought it was pretty good. I thought it was a lot better than Secret of the Use. You really should rewatch some of the Don Bluth movies from like Anastasia, Thumbelina, Rock-a-Doodle-Doo, All Dogs Go to Heaven, American Tail, or Secret of Nim. I remember the Secret of Nim very well. I liked that one when I was a kid. I love that fight scene with Leo and Raph. Yeah, that was pretty good. That actually was pretty good. I like the fact that, when they walk away, he gets beat up by all the Foot Clan. That was actually a pretty good one. But I mean, any concerns that anybody may have had over this Netflix version of the Transformers, it is unwarranted. And I actually heard quite a few people talking about that they were worried it was going to be woke because the first thing they seen was female Transformers and they started going on the wine train. Well, yeah, no, not the case. Not the case at all. Extremely well done. Exactly what Transformers fans really needed after like all those bad movies that came out. And even some of the cartoons, like I watched some of the Prime cartoons and some of them are okay, but it just, I don't know, to me, it just didn't feel like Transformers to me. Not like the old Transformers, the way I knew them. So when I seen this was huge. This was huge callback to all the older stuff that came before, infusing it with the newer stuff from IDW and creating these very gritty stories instead of just, the kid friendly versions that we've seen in Sunbow. It was something else. I mean, really, if you're a Transformers fan at all, or even if you're mildly interested in the Transformers, if you want to watch a good tale, a good story and it's relatively short, each episode is only about 30 minutes long, and it's only 6 episodes right now. So you can go through this whole thing in no time at all. And quite honestly, I already went through it twice, and I'm planning on rewatching again because I thought it was that good. I can't remember the last time that I actually watched some kind of Transformers show and I decided that I was going to watch it over and over and over again that quickly. This one, for me, it really hits a spot. It hits that nostalgia spot for me, and it brings back everything that I wanted to see in the Transformers franchise. This is it. I'm a Transformers fan, all right, but something tells me this isn't going to be Netflix last cartoon reboot. Probably not, Michael Brent. And I'm going to tell you one other thing about this show. Now, this is not really a spoiler at all, really, but at the very, very end, when this show ends and all the title credits had run and everything like that, they actually have a small caption and they say Transformers will return for chapters 2 and 3. To me, this is something I actually talked with Bear Nerd Fun about when he was reviewing trailer number 2 for this series before it came out. And he asked me, do you think they're going to continue this series? And I said, yes. I said, because the toy line is actually a trilogy of toy lines, which is the first one was the Siege, War for Cybertron. I mean, it's all part of the War for Cybertron toy line, but the first one was called Siege, and it was all about them being on Cybertron with Cybertronian modes. The second series, which has already come out, is called Earthrise, and that has to deal with them being on Earth. Not really sure what the third one is going to be yet, but I'm assuming it's going to be a return to Cybertron, or maybe even something to do with Unicron. Who knows? I think that's where they're going with it. But as far as I can tell, when they're saying chapters 2 and 3, they're talking about the next wave of toys, which of course is the Earthrise that's already out, and whatever the third one is going to be. They're going to continue this cartoon in the vein of the toys that are coming out. I really do like that because now they're tying everything back together like the original G1 did. Because the original G1, when those toys came out, they came out with the comic books, and then shortly thereafter, it was like, I don't know, maybe about 3 or 4 months later, they came out with the Sunbow cartoon. And all of them were tied in together to help promote the toy line. This feels the same way. You have the toy line, and then they're coming out with these Netflix series that are actually not only talking about the toy line through their stories, but they're actually going to boost sales of those toys because this show was actually amazing. And I really do see Transformer sales probably are going to go up, especially, the Netflix version ones, because they have Netflix exclusives at Walmart for the Siege War for Cybertron trilogy figures. Now, a lot of them are re-releases from the original Siege line, some of which I know I never had the money to go get just because, well, I'm a broke ass guinea pig and I just don't have that kind of money. But yeah, it gives people the opportunity to climb back on board and get some of those figures that are not really available anymore. And I think that is that in itself is pretty amazing too, that they're tying everything back in together like they originally did with the G1. Gargoyles and Avatar, The Last Bender, have a good story going too. Yeah, I vaguely remember Gargoyles now. The Last Airbender was much later for me. I was much older by the time that came out. And same thing with Avatar. I really wasn't watching those because I wasn't around to watch cartoons at the time because I was always working. So I do remember Gargoyles though, and I do remember my brother used to watch The Last Airbender. So, and I think my daughter used to watch it too. So I do recall those. But I mean, I think a lot of the other things that they did in this series is to fill out the roster. And this may actually help promote toy sales as well, is they actually did stuff where they actually had pretty much recolors of some of the characters. So you've seen multiple versions of Sideswipe and Impactor and Ironhide and Prowl, Mirage. A lot of them were just like faded out colors. But once again, it's just filling out the ranks to create a bigger platform for more, I guess, cannon fodder for the war, so to speak. But this was actually, once again, this is in homage to the original G1 artwork on the toys, because that original G1 artwork that was on the back of the boxes for those toys pictured all those characters multiple different times. So you've seen multiple Prowls or multiple Ravages, multiple Laserbeaks and Soundwaves. It was kind of a callback to that early artwork. Once again, an amazing concept. And a lot of these characters in there, they got a decent amount of depth in them. So, I mean, this is actually a truly, truly good series. If you're going to jump on board and catch this series while it's still new, you may find that you enjoy it so much, you might find it you're going to watch it multiple times. I know I'm going to. I'm going to watch it a few more times, probably just today, because I enjoyed it that much. Super chat, a colossal sized bag of premium carrots and premium lettuce for Tommy the guinea pig and his wife and the guinea pig pups so they can week out of complete happiness. Well, thank you, Ancient One. I appreciate that. So, does anybody else have any questions about the Transformers series that I just talked about? Is there any other concerns? Because I know that there's been quite a few people that had plenty of concerns about this show. And you know what? I can honestly say that all those concerns, they were unwarranted. And I mean, I had good feelings about the series when I first seen the trailer drop for it. And I watched it early this morning and I was exhausted too. I was exhausted. I just got off one stream and I was like, yeah, I got to leave early because I got to catch this show. I mean, I wasn't planning on staying up, but you know what? It was like 3:00 in the morning Eastern here. So I decided to stay up and I was going to watch that first episode. And that first episode was so good that I was like, man, it can't be this good. So I had to watch the second episode. And I got through the second episode and I was just blown away by how well it was done. I mean, I was actually trying to do my little talk early this morning on it, doing a quick review. And I actually found myself at a loss of words quite a few times because I just couldn't figure out what to say because I was just so blown away by what I had seen. Do you think they're going to add the human characters in this new Transformers series? Michael Brent, I do believe that once they make it to Earth for the Earthrise, we're probably going to see a lot of the human characters again. Now, whether they wind up doing it like they did in the original G1, where you just seen mostly Spike and his dad Sparkplug, or whether they go a different route, I'm not 100% sure. Now, if they go the IDW route, we are more than likely going to see Spike and his father, Sparkplug, and all them, but we're going to see them in a different version if they go the IDW route. That is yet to be seen. But since so much of this seems to be inspired by IDW, it is a very good possibility that we're going to see him like we did in IDW. In which case, Spike and his father are both military men. And it adds a completely different dynamic to the story, quite honestly, than him, like the original Marvel comics. His father was a mechanic. Now, when they did the Sunbow cartoon, he worked on an oil rig. So, I mean, You can't even, it's kind of hard to say that, well, he should be this or should be that, because there was two different versions of him early on in the storytelling. So the fact that IDW changed them both into military people, and this is probably what we might see in Earthrise. I mean, it's not guaranteed. I mean, who knows? Because once again, there were a lot of callbacks to the original G1 Sunbow cartoons and the Marvel comics. So who knows where they're going to go with it. But if this does as well, viewership wise as it should, because of how well done it is, I think that we're going to see a lot more good cartoons coming out of Netflix. And I mean, it's sorely needed. I can't say that enough. I mean, I truly, truly did enjoy this. I mean, I love this. As far as franchises go, I would rank this right up there with the old Sunbow cartoons. It is that good. I mean, any other questions you guys got from me, man? I love to be able to interact with you guys. I want to hear what you guys think about this. Are you guys interested in this one at all? I mean, how many of you guys are like hardcore Transformers fans? I mean, I know Michael Brandt, I know you said you are, but is anybody else here even interested? Even if you're not a Transformers fan, hearing about this and hearing that it's being done right, does it even interest you at all? Yeah, another thing that they actually did is they actually paid homage to the 1986 movie too, because you remember that scene where Prime dies in the 86 movie and the light fades out of his eyes. So when certain characters perish in the Seed show, it's the same thing. The light fades out of their eyes. Now, they don't turn gray like Prime did in the movie, which, I always found that kind of goofy, because you know what? It's not like paint is just going to fade because something stopped working, or in this case, died. I never quite understood that whole graying out process. It was more for dramatic effect than anything, but in the storyline itself, it really just didn't make a lot of sense. What they do here is they do the light fading out of the eye, signifying, that they died and there's no more power there. Yes, we need cartoons that don't treat kids like idiots. Well, Michael Brandt is, and it's not just kids too, because I mean, how many adults like that? I mean, you know, I'm far from being a kid, and there's a lot of these cartoons that I love dearly because I remember some of these franchises from when I was younger, and I want to see them done right. I want to be able to enjoy them just like I did when I was a kid. We need good cartoons with good storytelling, like Batman animated series, Gargoyles, Unlimited, Avatar, Last Edinburgh, Young Justice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I mean, I know you've been saying that for a long time that we need to see that stuff, and I think if everybody gets behind this series, all the people that say they're Transformer fans, and maybe even some of the people that are not, and they just want to see a cartoon done right for a change. If they get behind this series and they show Netflix, yes, this is what we want to see, we are more likely to see more of the same, because they're going to say, hey, people really liked it when we paid respect to everything that came before and all the original canon. They like that. We should do more of that. That's what we got to do. We got to show them what we like, instead of writing in and say, hey, you suck because this series is all woke trash. You know what? You just don't watch it. You just don't interact with it. And then when you find something good, you interact with that. You give it the thumbs up. You give it high praise. You tell them what a great job they did. That is what's going to actually change their minds to be able to make stuff that we all want to see. Hearing you talk has me really interested. Well, Captain Trek, I mean, I don't know if you were ever a Transformers fan. Now, I was a Transformers fan from the minute that it first came out when I was a kid, because when I was a younger kid in the 70s, they actually had the Microman, which was brought over from Japan into the States and was actually renamed the Micronauts, and it was through Mego Toys. And they were the early basis of what wound up becoming the Transformers, because they wound up having a subline called Microchange, and then they created another line called Diaclone, and then Hasbro came in and merged the two lines together and then brought them back to the States, rebranded as the Transformers. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that, maybe you don't realize that some of that earlier stuff actually led to the Transformers coming about. And a lot of that stuff actually led to a resurgence of G.I. Joe as well, because if it wasn't for the Microman and the Micronauts, G.I. Joe and the way that they were reformatted into those 3.75-inch figures never would have happened if it wasn't for Takara. Same are used to be a transfers, and when I first watched it on VHS alongside Sailor Moon and the Power Rangers. What are you talking about? The old Transformers on VHS? Yeah. So getting back to that, like I said, even if you aren't a Transformers fan, the way that this is done, even if you just like a good war story with, actual consequences and not just like the kiddie cartoon stuff that we've always seen in, say, like G.I. Joe and Transformers and so many of those other shows where there's actual real consequences and individuals die and they've got to make hard choices. This is definitely a series that you want to go and watch. It it's not going to take up a lot of your time either at 30 minutes an episode. I mean, technically with all the credits and everything like that, if you take that off, it's probably just under 30 minutes an episode, but it's an incredibly well done show. And I can't recommend this one enough. And like I said, if you back shows like this to shows that are good and you show them what we want to see, they're more likely to give us more of what we want. They're more likely to make stuff like Michael Brent said that he would like to see, new Batman or, see Gargoyles, Justice League, Avatar, The Last Airbender, stuff like that. We are more likely to get that. TMN, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We're more likely to get the cartoons and the shows that we want to see if we show them, hey, you did this right. We appreciate what you did. We want to watch this kind of stuff. You got to applaud when they do it right. Michael Brent, it's okay. We all make mistakes when we're typing. I do it plenty of times, and you see how much that I'm on different channels typing. I make plenty of typos in the chat, buddy. There's no worries. From you talking about this, I now know there is a substantial fan base. It says a lot about a 30 to 40-year-old franchise. Keck 44, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. There is still a substantial fan base. And there's actually plenty of people that actually, that's all they do is they talk about Transformers. One of them is this guy I watch every once in a while when I get a chance. It's called Rodimus Primal. That's pretty much all he does. His channel is solely dedicated to talking about Transformers. Now, whether he's talking about characters or he's talking about the old cartoons or whether he's talking about the brand new figures that are coming out, that's all he does. And there's a few other channels just like him, a few of which I've caught. I mean, I can't remember them all offhand, but Rodimus Primal is the one that I like, between him and Michael Mercy, who actually does some Transformers stuff. There's another guy called Chris Feely. Chris Feely does some incredible retrospectives on the Transformers characters. I mean, I've done a few of them too, but I mean, he knows his stuff. He knows his stuff very well. And I would say, if you wanted to see somebody else talking about Transformers and get their perspective on some of the characters, check out those guys. They do some really, really amazing content. Michael Brent. Look at the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. That went through some changes after that god-awful trailer. Paramount actually listened to the fans for once. Yep. And I did a review of that, through my daughter, because my daughter is actually the one that went to go see it. And she was blown away by how good the show was. And she said, yeah, there was a few inconsistencies with the original canon from the games and everything like that. But it was easily overlooked because of how well that they did the movie, and especially the animation for Sonic. I'm not Creative 22. Hey, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for coming by. Ancient One, I've watched the Sonic the Hedgehog film from beginning to end, right on the silver screen. I can safely say it's one of the best films based off a video game to date. And you know what? There's actually been quite a few video game movies that they've failed. They have just failed for one reason or another. Now, I know they had that Assassin's Creed one, and I never had the chance to go see it, but I had heard such horrible things about that movie that I didn't even want to go see it. And then it harkens back to the days of, like the Mario Brothers movie. Oh, oh, that was god awful. Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. I'm not creative. I'm not saying anything about it. I never watched it, but my daughter did, and she loved it. She absolutely loved it. And she said even the small problems that were in there as far as canon, she said was easily overlookable because how well everything was done. Oh no, anytime, buddy, anytime. So if you were going to ask somebody like Netflix, one cartoon and one cartoon only. And I know, I know, Michael Brett, you've got a whole list of them, but just one cartoon that you would like to see Netflix done. If you could sit there and ask the people at Netflix if they could do it the same way that they did this series right here, because this series it's amazing. If they could do another series of old cartoons the same way, which one would it be for you? Benzo H. Hey buddy, how you doing? Thanks for coming by. I mean, me personally, Transformers was one of the ones that was always on the top of my list. And the fact that they nailed this one and knocked it out of the park for me, my urges were satisfied to have Transformers back and have it back in a big way. And this series was it. So back when I was young, I used to watch Don Bluth, Thumbelina in the 90s, Cool World. And I could say without a doubt they were awful and the characters were not reliable. Latino Slant. Hey, buddy. Man, Latino Slant, man. He's a really cool cat. Um, Ancient One, I don't know if you have his link. Can you drop Latino Slant's link in the chat for me if you're still here? So, Latino Slant, Popeye for you, done in a newer animated version. Oh, Michael Brent, yes, yes, Voltron. I like the, you know what? I like both Voltrons myself. I like the Lion Voltrons, and then I like the other ones too. The ones I had all the multiple vehicles. I like both of them. Hollyweird. We hate Sonic. Read me also. Jim Carrey. Nobody cares. Defenders of the Earth, maybe. Had the pandemic not happened, Sonic the Hedgehog would have made over 500 million right in the box office, if not more. You know what? I'm not really sure about that Ancient One. I don't think the pandemic had really anything to do with Sonic not making any more than it did. I mean, I think you got to remember too, it was a game cartoon. So there's going to be a lot of older people that go out to theaters and maybe even some of the younger ones who don't really know the Sonic franchise as much as like middle-aged people. Those are the ones that really went out to see fans of the franchise. If you didn't know the franchise and you didn't really play those games, you were not going to go out to see this movie more than likely. So I think it was more about the reach of the game. You know what I mean? Like how many people actually played the game. I think that's why it did what it did. And I'm not really sure that, whether or not the pandemic was around or not, if it would have made more. I wouldn't be able to say that myself. Never got into Voltron, but I love Transformers. Yeah, I'm not Creative 22. I mean, I don't know if you caught what I was saying earlier about the show, but this show it hits all the right notes, man. All the right notes. This is actually an amazing series, and I cannot say enough good things about it. If ever there was a Netflix series that I would recommend people even just signing up for a free Netflix trial version, this is it. This is the series to watch because it was done perfectly, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, there's always going to be a few minor problems but they're so easily overlooked because of how well the story is done and how well the characters look, along with the world and the setup for everything. It's just, yeah, and all the nods and the winks to the older stuff, amazing. Yes, but not a woke Popeye. I love those characters. Latino Slant, yeah, the early Popeye, yeah, the original Popeye cartoons were really good. Oh, Latino Slant, anytime, buddy, anytime. Latino Slant's a good guy. If you guys have a chance, check out his channel. See what he's got going on over there. One of the first video games I played as a child was Sonic. I'm not Creative 22. My brother, that was one of his games. Like for the longest time, that was the only game he would play repeatedly over and over again. And he had multiples of them. Now, my daughter, she's the same way. Huge Sonic fan. Got a whole bunch of the little figures and stuffed animals and stuff like that. She loves that series, and she was blown away by it when she went to the theater. I don't have Netflix. Yeah, well, I'm not Creative. They do have a free trial. I seen it today when I was on there looking at Transformers when I watched the whole series again. They have a free trial. You could sign up and you can watch the series. I'm pretty sure that series is available when you sign up for the free trial. It's definitely worth it. It's worth the time to even check it out that way. It's done very well. I would not recommend this one if I didn't think it was done very well. There's a few things in it that are probably going to surprise a few people and a few deaths in there that are probably a bit jarring and shocking, but the way it was done, it felt like a real war, and it felt like there was real consequences. And the characters, while some of the voices may not have been exactly like the old cartoons, because you're not going to get that anyway, and I think most people understand that, but they were done enough like the old cartoons, minus Ironhide, because Ironhide is the only voice I didn't care for in the show. But everybody else, it's reminiscent of the original Sunbow cartoon, and it was done in a way where I didn't have many complaints about their voices at all. Like I said, other than Ironhide, because I didn't like that younger, almost like, I don't know, teenage sound in Ironhide in a way. I mean, he did not sound like the old gruff war veteran that he is. That was the only thing I didn't like about it. Netflix is way better than Disney. I'll tell you what, Michael Brandt, with this show, they've definitely improved their status in my eyes, because they've had a few shows where I was kind of questioning it, but this one, I mean, this was a huge rebound for me. Like, yeah, this one actually really, really hit close to home of what I wanted to see in this series and what I wanted to see in this franchise being resurrected. I wanted to see them done justice. I wanted to see a Megatron that was tyrannical. I wanted to see a Prime standing up to the might of the Decepticons. And while maybe not all powerful, he was doing the best he could to fight that tide. This is the Transformers that I always wanted to see as a kid. And the first time I got to see it was in the 1986 version, where there was huge consequences in that as well. Chaos Hoy, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for coming by. Yeah, I know Luffy is God. Yeah, Peter Cullen is my Optimus Prime too. But the guy who actually does this Optimus Prime, it is well done. Believe it or not. I mean, yeah, it's not exactly the same as Peter Cullen, because nobody's going to nail Peter Cullen but Peter Cullen. But this guy does an exceptionally good job. Exceptionally good job. And you know what? It's easily overlookable. Now, one of the things that some people might have a complaint with is maybe either Shockwave or Soundwave. But once again, I like the way that they did Soundwave, even though it wasn't exactly the same voice. It had that computer-esque, robotic sound to him, like really heavy, like he did in the original Sunbow cartoon. So, I mean, even with his voice being a few pitches higher than it was in the old Sunbow cartoon, I really didn't have much of a complaint for that either. Luffy is God. Defenders of the Earth was a cartoon featuring Flash Gordon, the Phantom, and Mandrake. They fought against Ming the Merciless and had an intro song written by Stan Lee. Huh. I really don't remember that one. I mean, I don't know why I'm blanking on that. I'm pretty sure I probably seen it. I'm just blanking on it right now. Super chat. A shipment full plate armor specifically designed for cute fuzzy guinea pigs for Tommy the guinea pig so he can prepare them for warfare. Thanks, Agent One. No, I can't thank all of you enough for coming out for this. I mean, to hear me just go on about this show, but I mean, seriously, this is a really good one. Michael Brent, if you're talking about that movie, I didn't like it. The Bumblebee movie, I did not like it. It was too Michael Bay. It was too Bayformers for me, and I didn't care for it. Now, what they do in this one, they pay homage to what Bumblebee originally was in his tech specs. I will say that much. Where Bumblebee was a messenger and a spy and everything like that, and he was sneaky. Yeah, this is we're getting the G1 version of Bumblebee in this series. Max von Sydow, Ming, rest in peace. Yeah, yeah. I love that old Flash Gordon movie. I thought that thing was great. Ballroom Blitz, and then the Flash song, Flash. Ah. If Cullen isn't in it, it explains why Ironhide isn't sounding right. He voices him too. Yes, Luffy. Yeah. But even then, I'm sure that they could have found somebody else with a gruff voice, because the guy that they had doing Ultra Magnus, he had a gruff voice. Now, why he wasn't no Robert Stax, he did a fairly decent Ultra Magnus, in my opinion. So, I mean, they easily could have had somebody else doing the voice of Ironhide. I just don't know why they didn't. D.D. Myers. Hello there. Greetings from San Antonio, Texas. Well, welcome. I'm glad that you could come by. I did like the Bumblebee movie, but then again, I never watched the 80s and 90s Transformers. Yeah, see, I'm not Creative 22. I mean, part of the big problem that I had with that movie is not just, because I watched the 80s cartoons or the 90s ones. It was also the Marvel comics, and it was those original toys. Because if you look at the original toys and the tech specs that were all written by Marvel creator Bob Budiansky, and yeah, the characters they're shown in that Bumblebee movie, the way they act and the way they're portrayed is nothing at all like those original G1 figures and their bios. It's completely altered. Like the whole thing where he says, Bumblebee doesn't get his name till he comes to Earth. That's nonsense. His name was always Bumblebee. It wasn't like 11005 or whatever the hell he said when he was on Cybertron. It's just nonsense. And the fact that Bumblebee came to Earth before the rest of them, that's a total departure from all of the canon that came before. Everything. IDW, Marvel, Sunbow, all of them didn't say that. They crash landed on Earth in all those other versions, except in that Bumblebee movie. And then, yeah, I couldn't get on board with it. I liked the first 4.5 to 5 minutes when they had the Cybertron stuff. Beyond that, I started losing interest in it. Angelus Draven, hey buddy, my favorite vampire. How you doing, buddy? D.D. Myers, loved the 1980 Transformers the most out of all the cartoons. Yeah, you know what? There was something special about them. I always wish that they could have did something a little bit more like the Marvel comics, though, because the Marvel comics was just had a slightly more edge than the Sunbow cartoons. One thing that always did bug me about Sunbow, though, is how they always mess up the colors. How they mixed up Frenzy and Rumble. They mixed up their color schemes. Ancient One, he just wants to have troves of fun to relax and play video games. Check out Angelus Draven. Thank you for dropping his link, Ancient One. Thank you. What do you think of the Dark Crystal Netflix series? Michael Brent, I've been meaning to get to that one. I have been meaning to get to it because we actually have the old DVD with the original Dark Crystal in the house. And I still have not gotten around to watching that series. I think I started watching the first episode, but for whatever reason, something else kept coming up every time I sat down to try to watch it. And I keep forgetting about getting back to it. D.D. Myers, Michael Bay Transformers were just okay movies, not my favorite. Yeah, I hear that, D.D. Myers. A lot of people liked them for what they were. I personally just couldn't stand them because they weren't my Transformers. I mean, they were not the Transformers I remember as a kid. So, I mean, I've got my reasons to hate it because I used to read all the comics. And like I was still reading the IDW versions, and the IDW versions are pretty much held up to most of what came before. I mean, not to even forget about the War in the Fall for Cybertron games from High Moon Studios, who borrowed heavily from the original Marvel comics and Sunbow cartoons. So, but anyway, guys, is there anything else that you want to know about this one? Because if not, I am probably going to call this one. I've actually been up for quite a while. I mean, I stayed up to 3 o'clock in the morning Eastern here, and I had to catch the first episode. And like I said earlier, I caught the first episode. Couldn't believe it was that good. Had to watch the second episode to make sure what I was seeing was real. Then, went to bed, woke up early, and I almost felt like a kid on Christmas. You know that feeling when you were younger, when you would go to bed before Christmas and you would wake up excited, and you would sometimes wake up early for Christmas Day? That's how I felt this morning when I woke up to come out and watch the rest of the Transformers series on Netflix. I was excited, and I couldn't wait to get out and watch it. I haven't been that excited to watch a series in a very, very long time. I like the new Dark Crystal. Are they doing a season 2? I wish I knew. I don't know. I preferred the original Dark Crystal over the Netflix one. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times when they do these spin-off series, there's always something that's kind of lost in translation for people, especially when they're doing it when it's supposed to be almost like a prequel. Because I believe it's supposed to be a prequel to the movie, isn't it? Everyone here destroy that like button and sub to this channel for more videos like this. And Luffy is God. I appreciate that, bro. Thank you so much. I try to do my best. And I'm going to try to be able to do more of this kind of format when I can. Unfortunately, there's just so many things going on all the time. It's just I always get wrapped up with other channels trying to help everybody out. But I am going to wind up like kind of pulling back on being on everybody's channel constantly modding so I could start focusing on stuff for my own channel. I mean, because there's so many things that I want to talk about that I just don't have that opportunity to do if I'm sitting around modding for everybody else. It's just one of those things. I mean, you can't be a mod forever. Yeah, you got to be willing to step away from it at some point, unless you're wanting, that's what you like. I mean, I've seen a few people. I mean, that's all they do. They mod. They like modding. So, I mean, if you are one of those people, my hat is off to you, because you know what? Everybody thinks that modding is something simple and easy. I mean, it could be a pain. It could be rough, like getting around to all these different channels, making sure you got all these different people's links and make sure you got the right links, because sometimes they have to be updated, especially if they're with Comicsgate. So it's not an easy thing to do all the time, but my hat's off to all the people that do it all the time. And then I know there's actually a few people that I talked to. They said I inspired them to be mods, and like, okay, all I was doing, going around and helping people out on channels. I don't think I was really doing anything special besides that. I mean, I would do for other people that I hope that they would do for me if they were on my channel with a wrench. That's all. I think it's just as simple as that. At Latino Slant, let me know. Let me know. Anytime, bro. I'm not creative 22. That is my problem. I have too many subs. I try to show up for everyone and still make videos. Yeah, I'm not creative. Yeah, I mean, it becomes a bit of a conflict of interest. You want to get out there and you want to help out other people, but at the same time, you want to be able to do stuff for yourself as well. I mean, you got to find that balance in there. This is why I've kind of cut back from like modding like 10 million different channels like I used to do. I would actually be out there and I would mod sometimes up to 7 channels at once. It was so ridiculous. It was so ridiculous. I mean, it was why some of the other channels like, Fatal J and Demaj and they would call me Multiverse Tommy, because I would be everywhere. He's like, every time I turn on a different channel, you were already there in the chat modding. And he's like, I don't know how you did it. And well, I mean, I wore myself out a bit doing it sometimes, but I enjoyed helping out everybody. And it's not that I don't want to help out everybody still, but if that's all I'm doing, I'm not going to be able to do anything that I want to do myself. And you know what? If you're not having fun on this platform to some degree and you're not doing what you want to do, I mean, there's almost no point in doing it. Luffy is God. It's a prequel, and if it had taken off, we would have gotten more Farscape episodes. You're doing great. I thank you with the video. Hey, yep. Thank you all for coming. I mean, seriously, it is easy to be a mod, but being a good mod is not easy. Well, you know what? I don't know, Captain Trek. I mean, if you put a little bit of time in it, I think anybody could be a good mod. It's just a matter of whether or not they want to be a good mod. See, I think that's the difference because you got to be willing to put a little bit of time into it because you really need to pay attention to what's going on in the chat most of the time. So, I mean, it's not just, it's not just as simply as just dropping links all the time, too. Sometimes it's, paying attention to what's going on in the chat and seeing, if there's a problem in the chat and being able to stop it before it gets out of hand. Yeah, speaking from mod myself, it is hard to keep up and still make videos. Absolutely, I'm not creative. Absolutely. Mando Merc. Hey, buddy. Tommy and the Guinea Pig Collective. I'll be doing my review this weekend. Perhaps we can do a few episodes together. Yeah, hey, like I said, I just got done watching this entire thing twice. Twice because it was that good. I am completely pleased with this series. Since I mod on John Talks, I lost 25 pounds. Mikkel Jolin, you crack me up, bro. Agreed. I was exactly as you were, doing modding all the time, but you need to take breaks so you can create your own content. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd seen some of it a long time ago, Luffy, but I don't really remember it very well. I mean, that's one of the things. Sometimes I watch some of these series, and if it's not a series that I'm seriously familiar with, I might watch it once and then I might forget about half of it because it's just not there. Like, I mean, there's certain shows that I always remember because I really enjoyed them. I might have watched them multiple times. Like, like some of the older shows like the 70s show and of course the older Transformers shows and G.I. Joe and I mean all that kind of stuff. I mean, there was a few newer series that I watched, like the originals that I really enjoyed, and I watched that twice, but some of the other ones I watch and, if it doesn't really strike a chord with me, yeah, like I watched, what was that one series about the Angels, Legion or something? I watched some of that and I thought it was just okay, but I didn't care enough for it to continue watching it. So, I mean, honestly, I forget about what half of it's about other than that there were angels and demons in it. Beyond that, I really don't recall because I didn't care for the series very much. I'm not Creative 22. Yep, that is me. I am subbed to over 120 channels, and it's hard to have a personal life. I have not even been on Xbox in over a month. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know what? It's so easy to get wrapped up helping all these different channels, too. It's easy to do it. Very easy. I mean, you just got to make that conscious effort to say, hey, you know what? I need to do something for me. I need to do something for me. And you need to step away sometimes. You have to. One of the things, if you keep doing it that way and you just constantly run around to everybody that you can, it gets to the point where you actually get burned out and it's not fun. I mean, I've seen a couple other people that were incredible mods that's all they did. They tried to do their own content and then they were running around modding for all these different people. I mean, doing the same thing I was doing. And they got burned out to the point where they just completely stepped off YouTube, just completely walked away for like 6, 7 months or more. They came back, started doing the same thing again, and disappeared again for a while. It's one of those things. Like anything else, it's got to be done in moderation, And like I said, I like getting around to help people out, but I mean, there comes a point where you can only do so much. So, I mean, you get to the point where you could pick and choose. That's what I do. That's what I've been doing. I mean, I try to stop by for as many people I can, but I got to pick and choose. Like, okay, I helped so and so out, or I had a chance to watch so and so's video. Well, I'm going to go check out this person today, or I'm going to go check out that person today. I mean, every once in a while, I might find I had tons of time because I did a video in advance or something like that. So maybe I have time to sit there and just go to a whole bunch of channels in one day and then go mod a bunch of channels. It's fine doing that once in a while. Just don't make it a daily habit where that is consumes your entire day from week to week, because it's no fun after a while. They are doing a season 2 for what I'm reading, just nothing official yet. And with everything going on, it will most likely be delayed. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of things being delayed. Yeah, Legion was based on the movie they did. I liked the movie, but the TV show I just didn't think was done very well. I'm not Creative 22, laughing out loud. I sometimes, when I am listening to podcasts, I do push-ups and sit-ups. I'm beginning to have bigger guns. Mando Merc. By the way, it would seem that you and I were correct. They are doing Earthrise for Chapter 2. It only makes sense, as it's the second line in the War for Cybertron trilogy. Mando Merc, yes. And I was actually talking about that earlier because I was saying at the end of episode 6, there's that small little caption that says Transformers will return with chapters 2 and 3. Obviously going to be the next 2 chapters in the toy line. Earthrise, of course, already being out. And then the third one, which is either going to be the Unicron or it's going to be Return to Cybertron. Who knows what it's going to be? I'm not really sure yet. So next Thursday, 4 p.m. Okay. Hey, just, you know what? Latino Slant. The day before, just send me a DM on Twitter and remind me. That's all. Luffy is God. It's a space sci-fi series. It's some of the best that has come out from Henson Productions. I recommend it if you are into that stuff. Along with Firefly, it is the best sci-fi that came out in the 2000s. It's funny. My daughter just recently borrowed a DVD of Firefly, and she was going to start watching it. So, yeah, I try when I can, but most channels have a bunch of mods already, so they are usually quicker to the punch with links. Yeah. And you know what? And there's a lot of people too that I'm seeing now that are, wanting to jump into the modding. And hey man, you know what? If they want to jump in and they want to do all the modding and I could just hang out in the chat and maybe just, ask people to hit the like button or something like that and just chill and talk with people, I'm absolutely fine with that. Absolutely fine with that. I don't need to mod. I just do it because I want to help out. I mean, I've seen a few people where they feel like they have to mod, and there's a few of these newer people I've seen out there, and none of the people that actually frequent my channel though. These are some other people that I've seen. They're newer to the scene. They've only popped up in the past month or so, and yeah, they see you drop something in the chat and they want to link right over top of you because they want their name to be the last one seen or something. Like they're a bit ridiculous. So I was like, hey, they want to do that. You can have right at it. You can link everything in the chat all by yourself. I'll just chill. I don't care. Odds are the third line will have Hot Rod, Rodimus Prime, Galvatron, Cyclonus, Cup Blur, etc. Yeah, I'm thinking so. And like I said, if it's not going to be Unicron, it probably will be Return to Cybertron, kind of like what they did in the IDW comics. So, yeah, I try when I can. Yeah. Start out amazing. Yeah. Usually, I like to welcome people to the chat if I can. Yeah, that's never a bad thing to do either, Angela Straving, because you know what? When you're interacting with everybody in the chat, I mean, I've actually seen YouTubers now. I don't know how you guys feel about this. I'm sure you're probably going to feel the exact same way I do. But there's a few YouTubers out there that actually said the people in the chat don't even matter. And they rarely, if ever, actually interact with the chat. Now I realize when you got a panel of people, it gets a little bit harder to actually interact with the chat on a personal level because you got all the other people that you're trying to talk to in the chat, and they got their points to make. So it's not always easy to be able to pull everybody out of the chat and mention them. It's a lot easier when you're doing, just you and the chat. So, but I mean, there's some people, they don't even make the effort, or they don't even care. I mean, I've actually heard a few YouTubers in the past year, they talked about how they don't care what the chat is saying. Like, really? I mean, if you don't care what the chat is saying, then why do you even do a live stream? If you're not going to be interacting with the chat at all, why bother? There's no point in it. You might as well just make a regular video and put it out there so nobody has to interact with you then, if that's the way you feel. Angela's Draven, help link other channels and such. Fluffy is God. I am sound a series review for another channel. Yeah. 21 likes so far. Let's see if we could jump it up to 30. Huh? Thanks, H1. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you know what? I'm just happy that everybody that's here already has shown up and actually, stopped by to listen to me just like rumble on about this show and then everything else that that we're talking about, because it's the interaction. And I always say that in all my videos. It's the first thing I say is that, leave the comments, and leaving the comments is one of the most important things to me, because it's the interaction. Because if I'm not doing this for the interaction, I don't even see what the point is. That's exactly why I do it. I want to be able to chat with people. I want to get other people's opinions. I want to hear what other people have to say on it. Because, maybe sometimes somebody has the same take as me. Maybe sometimes somebody has a slightly different take than me. Maybe it's in the same ballpark, but it's a little bit different. And maybe, I might see things a little bit different because of the perspective somebody else has that maybe I just never thought of. I mean, you just never know. And if you're unwilling to hear those kind of things, then, you're pretty close-minded, and you're probably like some of those YouTubers that don't care what the chat says. There are some channels that do that unless it's a super chat. Yeah. Yeah. Keck 44, Tommy Rants. Yeah, you know what? Keck 44, it's actually funny you should say that. When I first started doing some of my videos, some of them actually were just called Tommy Rants. That's what I did. Just went off about something, and it didn't even matter what it was. The people in the chat is the channel. So saying hi means a lot to people. If you don't interact with the chat like Nerdotic, you need good mods so people feel welcome. Yes, yes. Now, you know what? I mean, when you talk about people like Nerdotic and everything like that have those humongous channels where that chat is sometimes moving a mile a minute, I would imagine it's probably damn near impossible for somebody like that to be able to sit there and welcome and greet every single person that comes in the chat. I personally couldn't imagine. Now, I know you can actually, there's a way to slow the chat down, but even then, I mean, yeah, if you spent all the time greeting 800 to 1,000 some odd people in your chat every time you were going, how much of a show would you really be able to do? You'd spend most of your time just welcoming everybody. It wouldn't, for a channel, with the numbers that he has, that would not be very productive at all. Not at all. But I've seen just smaller channels where they just ignore the chat. A couple of those channels I used to frequent all the time, and I don't anymore. Because I just don't prescribe that kind of behavior, I mean, that's the way you want to treat your chat and treat the people that are coming and showing you love on your channel by being there. You know what? You don't deserve my time. Yeah, you can slow chat. Yeah. Yeah. I seen God, who was it? I think it was John Talks. Yeah, John Talks had a lot of trolls in his chat one day. And because the chat was moving so fast with all the trolls that were in there, it was really, really difficult for all the mods to be able to snag everybody. And I was trying the best I could, but I couldn't even get them all. There was just way too many of them. It was ridiculous. So John actually had to slow the chat down so we could be able to snag all the trolls and boot them off the channel. Gary doesn't know how to slow down the chat. Yeah, there's an edit button when you go on there, so you can slow that down. I think it's all done out of the YouTube studio. Angela Straven, I try and greet everyone in my chat. I'm really bad at talking while gaming unless the chat gives me something to talk about with them. Yeah, I get that. I mean, when you're doing like a game and everything like that, but even then, 90% of the time, if you don't say hi to somebody right away, you always do wind up saying hi to everybody that's there at some point. So I'm talking about the people that just like blatantly just ignore the chat. I've seen channels that I used to frequent often where they would actually ignore the mods too, trying to get their attention. Like somebody had a serious question or somebody had a problem or, something was going on. You're sitting there trying to get a hold of the channel owner and he's just ignoring the chat. But, what's the point of freaking having a mod in there that's going to help you out if you only want to pay attention to your mods on your channel either? There's people that run channels like that. And then they get all bitter and bent out of shape when they don't have nobody showing up to their channel and they wonder why. Well, maybe people are tired of getting ignored. Yeah, Nerdrotic chat goes at warp speed. Yeah. Mikkel Jolin, yeah, it does sometimes. Kai? Was Kai here? I'm not seeing him in this chat for some reason. Gary sometimes doesn't know how to turn on the mic. Well, you know what? I'm sure everybody at some point has like a kerfuffle where they just don't set everything up properly before they get started. I mean, that could happen to anybody. Wait, well, one of those trolled named Tyler Norton, I burned that troll over 1,000. Oh, wait a minute, 1,000 times. I can't remember because there were so many names that day when it happened in John Talks. There might have been a Tyler Norton in there too, but I can't remember. Yep, you need a link, Mando. Iron Man, like button blasted. Nice. But anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap this one up. And I want to thank every last one of you for coming out. Mando Merc, Angela Straven, I'm Not Creative, Keck 44, Ancient One, Mikkel Jolin, Luffy is God, Captain Trek, Latino Slant, buddy, thanks for coming by. And everybody else that maybe I'm not, DD Myers, everybody that has come out. I really do appreciate Chaos Hoy. Chaos Hoy always shows up, man. He's great. Thank you so much for stopping by. I really do appreciate you guys coming by and spending time on the channel with me. And just remember, never let anybody tell you what you can and can't say, what you shouldn't like. Because your silence gives consent. And I will catch you all next time. Have a good one. Later, y'all.